and Stacey Abrams joins me now. It's great to have you, and I thought maybe we'd start with your own story. I saw that you had your own story of voting and the difficulties of it yesterday. Can you tell us what happened to you?
Absolutely. So because of the pandemic, because we were encouraging people to vote by mail, because that was the safest way to vote, not only for the voter, but also for voters who didn't have a choice, I attempted to vote by mail. I eventually got my ballot. I filled it out. And when I got ready to put it in the return envelope, it was sealed shut. I then attempted to steam it open because I've watched too many mystery shows. It did not work. And so yesterday I went to stand in line with fellow Georgians to cast my ballot.
It's been remarkable. Kemp has not said anything about this. And the line from the Secretary of State has been, this was on the various precincts. It was on the counties. They all screwed this up. I want to read you a quote from someone named Gabriel Sterling, who is the statewide voting implementation manager, who said the following. We have reports of poll workers not understanding setup or how to operate voting equipment. While these are unfortunate, they are not issues of the equipment, but a function of counties engaging in poor planning, limited training, and failures of leadership. What do you think about that?
That he misunderstands or deliberately is indifferent to the needs of voters. The Secretary of State decided to purchase $107 million worth of new equipment. He was responsible for the implementation of these changes. In fact, he used $400,000 that was allocated by the federal government to help with the implementation of elections, and he used it to do an advertisement about how good he was because he got these machines. The Constitution of Georgia puts the responsibility for the administration of elections on the Secretary of State. The counties are the local instruments, but the Secretary of State is responsible. And even the challenge of implementing new equipment isn't new. In 2002, Democrat Kathy Cox had the same responsibility. She provided staffing, training, mailed instructions to every single voter, had emergency standby, had 100 extra Secretary of State staffers ready to help. None of those things were available. And instead, what we saw were inoperable machines, miscommunication, failed training, and failed direction, all of which lay squarely at the feet of the Secretary of State.
There's a question here about incompetence versus malice, obviously, and there's a long history here, both in Georgia in recent memory, going back to a very, very long time, back to Reconstruction. The Brennan Center has studied this issue and shows that long wait times disproportionately affect Black and Latino voters. Latino voters wait on an average 46% longer than white voters. Black voters wait on an average 45% longer than white voters. And Jamelle Bouie, New York Times columnist, put it this way, I thought succinctly: an election where people are waiting for 7 or 8 hours to cast a ballot is not a free and fair election. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. We know that in the state of Georgia, you do not have the right to pay when you are voting. They have to let you go and vote, but you do not have the right to be paid, which means people sacrifice a day's wage to try to cast a vote. And these are largely communities that are working class, working poor. They're not making a lot to begin with. And to simply cast a ballot, they have to sacrifice it's a poll tax. But we know even more that, you raised the question of incompetence versus malice. In Georgia, it's both. There's a malfeasance that is permeating the entirety of our voting system, and it's exacerbated by the incompetence of the leadership that refuses to, number one, do its job, and two, doesn't seem to understand what the job is. That's what we face in Georgia. But let's be clear, this didn't just happen in Georgia. It also happened in South Carolina and Nevada to a lesser extent, and certainly without the clownish behavior of the Secretary of State. But across the country, we are seeing this combination of incompetence and malfeasance, putting voters of color at risk of not being heard in our democracy.
There's also been the Iowa State Senate Republicans today wanted to block the Iowa Secretary of State, the Republican, from mailing out absentee ballots to all the voters, something that's happened under the Republican Secretary of State in Ohio and the Democratic Secretary of State of Michigan. It's not a partisan issue. What do you make of this increasingly partisan attack on vote by mail? Particularly, right now, our first block of the show was the pandemic hasn't gone anywhere, and we're not in cold and flu season, and we're not in the fall when people expect to be worse.
We know that it's going to be worse. We know that people want to be heard. We are in the midst of a public health crisis, an economic collapse, a deep distrust of our justice system, and we have a voting system that Republicans are doing their level best to make as unusable as possible. Republicans have been fighting across this country to fight back against expansion or at least access to voting rights. But we also know that Republican leaders know better. They use absentee ballots. They know that vote by mail works. They are not concerned about fraud with vote by mail. They're concerned about participation. And the reason we see people pushing back is that in the state of Iowa, there is a real strong likelihood that Democrats are going to outperform Republicans. And so this is the best way to constrain their participation. What we saw happen in Georgia was that more Democrats voted in this election than have voted in previous primaries, including in 2016.
Interesting.
And this record turnout looks different, looks like disaster for them. And so they're going to do their level best to limit who can actually have a voice in our election.
Well, you raised the turnout yesterday was very high because Georgia has a very strange situation this year. It has 2 contested Senate seats. It had 2 contested Senate primaries yesterday, along with the presidential primary, which have been delayed. And when people talk about there's polling right now showing the president and Joe Biden essentially tied in Georgia or around there that is within striking distance. Election day in Georgia is going to be bonkers just at a turnout level. 2 Senate seats and also the presidential. You got to imagine that any competent administrator would have to be planning for an enormous turnout in November.
Which is why it's so dangerous that Brad Raffensperger is denying responsibility. The resources for scaling up our elections, both in Georgia and around the country, will have to come from the HEROES Act. It will have to come from the federal government. But if the Secretary of State is not intending to use those resources to help the local officials actually meet the moment, then we know that our elections are going to collapse. And we have seen what voter suppression can do in Georgia. And I know that the turnout in this upcoming election is going to dwarf the record turnout that we had in 2018. 2018, we had the single largest turnout of Democratic voters in Georgia history. That number is going to be much higher in 2020 because recovery from the pandemic, recovery from the systemic injustices that we saw that took the life of Ahmaud Arbery, that took the life of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, those issues are going to be on the ballot. And people know that if we don't solve this problem in this election, we do not have a future for many people in this country.
Stacey Abrams, whose new book, again, is called Our Time Is Now. Thank you so much for taking some time tonight.
Thank you for having me.